The iconic artifact of the MCU, Mjolnir, will probably find its new home in the hands of Jane Foster. However, the road will probably be one of the trickier ones, and with a lot of obstacles, especially judging by the fact that there is an individual named Gorr on the loose, who is thirsty for blood. And with the new Queen of New Asgard still not found, there will be a lot of things for us to keep track of in the upcoming Thor movie. After the third revitalizing third iteration of Thor in a standalone movie in the form of Thor Ragnarok, Taika Waititi is back again to use his magic and bring even more joy to us in the upcoming fourth Thor movie, Thor Love and Thunder. The movie will be the first of its kind, as it is the fourth movie in line that will feature a solo movie for one of the characters in the MCU. And we think that Thor is the perfect individual for it, not just because he is a literal god, the god of thunder, but also because of his personality, the environment he comes from, but also the adventures he has had so far, both on Earth and across the 9 realms. The other thing that we are really excited about is the fact that Natalie Portman is coming back to the MCU as Jane Foster, who will take on the mantle of God of Thunder. As Thor and Jane reconnect and Valkyrie searches for a queen to help her rule New Asgard, the movie is poised to be a very fun, unorthodox rom-com wrapped up in a big-budget superhero adventure. Oh, and we almost forgot, the Guardians will be part of it as well. After all, Thor is one of them after the events of Avengers Endgame. As to how much screen time will be given to them, we're not quite sure yet. The villain of the movie, or at least one of the villains, will be Gorr, the God Butcher, who will be played by the incredible Christian Bale, who is finally becoming part of the MCU, and who is here to lay waste to the entire world filled with gods, starting with the one we all know, Zeus. Portman's role in the movie might probably prove to be just as important as Thor's, and we're not surprised, considering she will bring to the live action yet another new, albeit familiar, superhero, Mighty Thor. In the comics, Foster is actually the one that becomes the goddess of thunder after Thor, but in the MCU, her role has been portrayed differently. A love interest of Thor Odinson, an astrophysicist who is swept by the science side of things and somehow manages to ingest the Aether, chain of events that lead her to the deathbed as she is diagnosed with cancer that will soon end her life unless she becomes the goddess of thunder, and the powers that come with the title that will eventually be there to keep her from falling ill to the life-threatening state she falls in. As for how she will be able to obtain these said powers remains to be seen. A marvel of some kind, we suppose. There have been some theories flying around as to what will be the way Jane Foster gets the powers she will have over the course of the movie. One of the most speculated theories, which is a very easy way for Marvel Studios to do this, is for them to take a slightly altered way of how she became Goddess of Thunder in the comics, where Jane was first seen in the suit as Mighty Thor, as a Midgard representative at the Congress of the World, a world where Jane Foster gets diagnosed with breast cancer. Shortly after, she tragically loses her husband and son in a car accident, a period in which Thor becomes unworthy of Mjolnir, following an encounter with Nick Fury, and Asgard is left defensiveless. This is when a mysterious woman picks up the hammer and fights off Malekith, the Minotaur, and Absorbing Man, a woman who was later revealed to be Jane Foster. This theory is not possible at the moment in the MCU, seeing how Malekith has already been defeated in the second Thor movie. However, an altered version of this might be the simplest way of how Jane becomes Mighty Thor. However, the tricky thing will be that Thor himself is also still worthy of the same powers. Thus, it will be an interesting thing to see how things turn out at the end, and how the duo will work together in their next lively adventure as a power couple, both literally and metaphorically. This movie might also be the last we will see Chris Hemsworth as Thor, because there is a high chance that he will be the one to pass on the mantle of Thor to Jane in order to save her. And when we take a look at the wider MCU and Phase 4's overall passing of the torch theme, this might actually be the final movie of Hemsworth as Thor. Hopefully not though. We still have quite a lot of things to see from him in the future of the MCU, so it will be an interesting thing to see of how things will turn out by the end of the movie. The fourth Thor movie will also reflect upon the cut they had to do in the third movie due to studio interference, and officially make Valkyrie the first LGBTQ+ superhero of the MCU. a motion that will probably be key in her search for a queen that will rule as the new queen of Asgard. Zeus, the king of the Olympians, has already been confirmed to be part of the movie, with Russell Crowe in the role. And despite him not having much screen time due to the fact that he will be the first victim of gore, he could play a much larger role for the MCU's future. He could, in fact, be the one to introduce the Olympians to the MCU, who are practically the gods from our Greek mythology with slightly altered names, and the ones who are real and live little pocket dimension off of Earth in the MCU. A shift of scenery, which could potentially lead to Olympians versus Asgardians movie, and they would come at a perfect time in the MCU, just how the rumors of the Egyptian gods come into the MCU through the Moon Knight series. Thor: Love and Thunder will probably bring back Jamie Alexander's Lady Sif, who was given a promising introduction in the first movie, then was sidelined in the second one, and was not seen in the third at all. She is a close childhood friend of Thor, and we think she will finally get the substantial role she deserves, maybe even as the Queen of New Asgard. Either that, or the movie presumably preparing her for her own spin-off movie or Disney Plus series. Thus, it will be an interesting thing to see what happens to the character, seeing how she is still kicking.
Asgard is dead.
Establishing New Asgard's place in the wider world of the MCU will probably be a very good thing to see, which is yet another fictional place somewhere in Norway, and the fourth of its kind so far, with Wakanda, Madripoor, and Sokovia already having their place in the MCU. Hence, a bigger introduction to the place and how it will work will be a good thing for the audiences around the world. This movie will also be the first full-blown romance movie. Now, there has always been a romantic subplot in the other MCU movies, including the likes of Doctor Strange's or Thor's in the second movie, and even Wanda and Vision's relationship in WandaVision. Yes, the last one was put on the forefront, but in a limited streaming series. This movie will bring superhuman romance to the big screen, and it will be an interesting thing to see how Marvel Studios will deal with it. We mentioned the Guardians of the Galaxy having some screen time in the movie, right? Well, Thor: Love and Thunder might actually be the centerpiece that will eventually set up the Guardians to have more crossovers with the other MCU projects, seeing how they will be closely connected to the earthy side of things in their next outing. On a related note, tell us down in the comments below, what are you most excited about one of the most anticipated movies in 2022? But also, what do you think about Natalie Portman's return, now in a completely new light as Mighty Thor? Do you think she is worthy of the title? And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon if you would like to see more videos like this in the future. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.